everyone, I am P. Karunya Rao and you're watching Brandstand, your weekly destination of all the latest news and trends from Brandland. Over the next half hour, we're going to update you on all that's been happening in the ad, media and marketing world. But before that, let's take a look at what we have in store in today's episode. A report on the 4G advertising war and the key findings of the FICCI KPMG study. Let's view the headlines of the week gone by. If you recall, various media agency forecasts on Brandstand in the last few months had underscored that spends on 4G marketing will boom in 2016. And sure it is. We've seen some high decibel advertising already, and I'm told the battle hasn't yet begun. Our top story this week is a report by my colleague Ruhi Kurele on how telcos are getting set for the great 4G war. Take a look. While the amount in terms of media spends may not be as that of the FMCG sector, clearly telecom has been seeing new highs every year thanks to the boom in cellular voice and data services in the last 2 decades. Like e-commerce was last year, forecast says 2016 will see the achedin for media spends from telcos thanks to 4G.
Airtel 4G challenge. इससे faster network मिले तो lifetime mobile bills free.
Airtel was the first to launch, but Vodafone and Idea are not too behind. According to the FICCI KPMG report, 3G and 4G subscribers would constitute over 40% of the wireless internet subscriber base over the next couple of years.
2015, a huge burst of e-commerce ads, and now that's gone down. I would expect the same thing to happen. Till the picture is clearer after the Reliance launch. It is only after the Reliance launch will we realize, because Reliance is saying I will be 8 times faster. Now it is then that the dust will settle and the result of this war will be clear. Whether Idea gains, whether Vodafone gains, whether Airtel gains, or whether Reliance completely changes the battlefield. So until that happens, I expect a lot of advertising to happen.
अभी मैं हॉलिडे पे हूँ और यहाँ 4G मिलने का चांस ही नहीं है.
पूरा चांस है इस टीम के जीतने का. हम लाइव आपके साथ हैं.
Airtel has launched the second leg of its campaign, and Vodafone too has had a visible presence in the quest to attract more subscribers. And with the launch of Reliance Jio set to happen any day now, an advertising war is inevitable.
Certainly 4G services are going to see increased action. So with increased action, there's going to be increased clutter. With increased clutter, there's going to be increased innovation. So I won't be surprised if you see various forms of innovations in different forms of media, whether that's television or print or in any other form. But I'm very sure you're going to see heightened action on 4G. How much is anybody's guess to predict? And with the heightened action, you will see newer and interesting forms of innovations in media coming along across all mediums.
The top 3, whether it is Airtel and Vodafone and Idea, in a very unusual situation. I think they have around 73 or 74% of the market share. So there is great dominance. But on the other hand, waiting on the sidelines is this huge, what we call the 100-pound gorilla, which is going to be Reliance. So they have much bigger plans, much bigger. I think the last figure I heard was 20 billion US as an investment. Now, therefore, while these 3 have that 73 or 74% market share, they need to make sure that the transition to 4G happens fast and happens more to them than to any other.
Yes.
हाँ यार.
Correct.
थोड़ा over हो गया.
थोड़ा.
Bharti Airtel is already promoting its services with an aggressive 360-degree marketing campaign. Its communication features girl next door Sasha Chhetri, who can be seen mocking herself in the ad. The campaign this year talks of the widest 4G network.
No way नहीं यार. 4G है.
What you saw in the early days of the launch was Sasha, who's our brand ambassador, propagating the message of 4G. Here you found her in remotest of locations, and the brand and 4G kind of found her. So Airtel 4G was she was influenced by the brand versus she influencing others to take on the Airtel 4G services. So I think this shift in stance And this tongue-in-cheek kind of attitude that we displayed in our communication caught the attention of consumers, and I think that was really the objective.
Then after 500 meters, take a sharp left at
Again?
Sawyer Road.
Let's hear it from Taproot, the creative agency of Bharti Airtel, on how the campaign is helping its client position itself differently vis-a-vis competition.
I always say that telco advertising is like political advertising, politics, doing advertising for political parties, simply because its TG at any given time spans across 4 or 5 SECs. Therefore, we've got to keep all the wheels spinning rather than say what's the next film, what's the next campaign. And that's why it's an interesting challenge for a creative agency to handle, because it's like the elephant in the room with 6 blind men finding a different meaning or metaphor for what it stands for each of them. For some it's pure connectivity, for some it's what they can do with life and internet speed, and for some it's just the security of having a network that never fails.
हर फोन में 4G हो सकता है.
Being the first in line to roll out Media Blitzkrieg months ahead of its arch rival may have given Airtel an advantage. But Vodafone seems all set for the challenge, with its 4G campaign already grabbing attention. The Pug, one of Vodafone's most adorable and successful mascots, is back to promote the brand's 4G services.
World's largest 4G network is here.
Chica the Pug, as our symbol of our network, is a very, very strong differentiator. And we thought that Chica symbolizes the fact that we offer a great network experience to our consumers, and it's a very well differentiated proposition. Hence the use of Chica for this campaign. If I look at the initial results that are coming through, consumers are loving it, and there is a keen anticipation for more stories around Chica and what he's doing with Vodafone Supernet 4G.
Meanwhile, as Reliance Jio insiders are tight-lipped about their plans, Idea is getting set for the big battle.
The first phase of our launch is just over. We are going to be hitting about 750 towns by June. That's what our managing director has put out. We also, wherever we have launched, we've already got our campaign out. So we are focusing on the network experience that we will give people with our 4G. That's what we've put out. So our proposition is that Idea 4G LTE is the network for people who live online. And that is already out in all the circles that we have launched. The television campaign will also come in due course.
This has clearly been a decade of explosive mobile internet growth in India in the second of the 2 decades of mobile telephony. Around 60% of internet access in the country is through mobile phones, giving enough reasons to the telcos to use digital to bolster their consumer base through promotions.
The percentage of money that is of a total budget that is going into digital is already on the rise. It's already increased by some 15-20% in the mix. But you need mass media for the simple reason that you are still converting from 3G to 4G. You don't have a captive 4G audience to whom you are saying use data more. You are trying to do the job of converting from 3G to 4G.
While Vodafone and Airtel claim to be the fastest and the most efficient, it would be interesting to see how their marketing strategies pan out in the time to come, along with other telecom operators who are yet to launch their 4G service. Also, if the number of TV spots, jackets and full-page ads on newspaper have any bearing on consumers' mind.
The 17th edition of FICCI's annual convention for the media and entertainment sector, FICCI Frames, happened last week, also serving as a platform for the launch of the FICCI KPMG report. Our consulting editor, Pradyuman Maheshwari, was present at the event and spoke to a cross-section of stakeholders about the key findings of the study. Here's what the report had to say. At the 17th edition of FICCI Frames, broader aspects of digital evolution and the elements that directly or indirectly affect the entertainment industry were discussed. The event played host to over 2,000 delegates from around the globe and saw eminent leaders and orators share their experiences and insights with the audience, culminating to the launch of the FICCI KPMG report. Here's what the report had to say.
If you look at the growth of media over a period of time across any major economy, you will find that it grows at approximately 2x GDP. Whether you take the US, whether you take the UK, you take Japan, you take China, over a period of 10, 15 years, that has been the norm generally. So factoring in the that we are about 7.2, 7.5 GDP right now, and with some implementation challenges, that's where we put in the CAGR of approximately 14.5. In this past year, I think probably because of a bit of a slowdown in regional FMCG demand, a bit of economic challenges in regional markets, I think some of that, the budgets that were there for advertising in those markets also contracted a bit for the print side, and we saw some of that fall. Advertising for television grew at about 17% in 2015. We're bullish going forward as well. I think some of the GECs, especially the Hindi GECs and the larger regional ones, grew in the early 20s in terms of growth rate, which is phenomenal by any standard. We are likely to become 25-27% of overall digital advertising spend in the next 5 years by 2020. So as you get Digital India, as you get broadband into the home, it becomes cheaper. As you get 4G, bigger penetration of 3G, people using the second screen, a lot of those foundational changes are what will drive digital advertising. Finally, radio is at par with some of the other mediums in terms of being able to offer national coverage. You can go to a brand and you can say, I can give you a national radio campaign, or at least in all the major markets, which television could do earlier. Radio still hasn't transcended to its promise, where it is a local medium in other markets around the world. I mean, in our markets, it's still about 60%, 50%, 60% national brands. Animation services is disappointing in that sense, because we could be a powerhouse of animation services to the world. But I think one also has to take into account that we face some very intense competition from countries which get a lot of subsidies. VFX, in fact, there has been some significant growth. I mean, local productions are starting to use a lot of VFX now. There are certain parts of the M&E sector which may underperform from year to year, but I think overall as a sector, I mean, if you look at it, we are still at 0.5% GDP of GDP in terms of advertising. I mean, mature economies are closer to 1.6, 1.8 or even 2% in some cases. So there's a lot of headroom for growth.
The report itself has been a chronicler of the sector over the years. As per the report, key highlights of the year 2015 include the implementation of a viewership measurement system by BARC, with the impact on budget allocations for advertising among channels only just starting to change. The e-commerce industry is expected to continue to advertise across mediums, moving from its earlier focus on digital platforms with an increased focus on regional markets.
The idea was that we must collect data on a continuing basis. We must collect issues that the industry feels are important for them, so that this gets reflected not only within the industry itself and is debated and discussed in this platform, but more important, it gets placed before government. And that's the important part of it. This is one industry which is so directly connected with the whole digital revolution that we see around us, not just in India but around the world. So the very variation that are coming in the industry and the convergence that is happening in the industry gets reflected in the reports and in the discussion that you find out here.
Clearly, digital dominated the discussion at the event and the KPMG-led report. The report suggests that by 2020, the digital advertising market is likely to shape up to Rs 255 billion and contribute to 25.7% of total advertising revenues. Increased share of mobile and video advertising as part of digital media is one of the things to look forward to as well.
We've seen a more than 1000% increase in smartphone penetration in India, from 12 million to potentially 150 million in this year. And we are transitioning from 2G all the way into LTE right now. So I think in every way, the ground is being set right, and we are witnessing rapid adoption, which is obviously reflective of when you see digital advertising has been one of the fastest growing at about 35% year on year, and likely to touch closer to about 20,000 crores over the next 4 years or so.
Television, as we saw, got a boost last year, and regional forays of various networks is where we're going to see a push.
Yeah, absolutely. In fact, we've been seeing a lot of good work happening on the regional front. be it the content focus, the kind of creating content which allows people to be rooted as well as aspirational at the same time. So regional space in terms of content offering has really moved with the times and enabled people to belong as well as to fly. We see that there's a lot of potential in terms of growth, fueled both by advertising and subscription in the regional space, and I think with the DAS rollout happening, which is a fantastic move, it's a lot of viewers getting a lot of opportunity to see a lot more channels, and that's going to fuel further interest and further engagement with television content.
The KPMG FICCI report states that advertising revenue is expected to grow to Rs 994 billion at a CAGR of 15.9% by the year 2020.
15.9% is probably a bit on the higher side. Maybe if the economy does well and we have good monsoons and India generally performs well over the next 4 or 5 years, it is quite achievable. I would think the more realistic figure would be between 12 and 14%. In general, the rule of thumb that we use is that anywhere between 1.75 to 2 times the GDP growth is generally the growth of advertising. So if Indian economy continues to do even better, then advertising can grow even more.
Well, it's a mixed bag for the M&E sector, as Jehil Thakkar pointed that things could have moved faster had some key developments not got delayed. And before we close, here's a look at the campaigns released this week.
Zivame app पे सब कुछ मिलता है यार.
Zivame's new ad campaign showcases solutions for the lingerie shopping woes that most women face in the country. Conceptualized by Famous Innovations, the campaign comprises 2 television commercials that builds a compelling case for offering women a much more intimate and pleasant shopping experience than what they currently have.
तो या तो तुम सेल्समैन भैया की फेवरेट ब्रा पहनो या zivame.com में लेसी वेसी पुशअप जो मंगाना है बिंदास मंगाओ.
VIP has launched its latest campaign, When You're Very Important, featuring actor Hrithik Roshan. Conceptualized by the team of Finest Worldwide, the new TVC illustrates the transformation of India's pioneering luggage brand, creating a niche positioning for itself. Apart from a 45-second television commercial, viewers on the digital platform will get to watch a 2-minute 45-second film on social media as well.
VIP, when you're very important. It is all in your mind, all in your hands.
OnePlus India has launched its first ever brand campaign, #OneMore. Created by Orchard Bangalore, part of the Leo Burnett Group, the campaign focuses on brand's never settle philosophy. The film is made up of many small stories and moments that convey the spirit of not settling for what exists.
Isn't good enough. So give it another shot. Because when you go for one more,
there's something wrong with the AC. It suddenly gets too cold.
Blue Star has unveiled a TV commercial for its range of split inverter ACs. The film projects Blue Star inverter AC as a contrast to the usual ACs that make the room hotter or colder than the set temperature. It has been conceptualized by Interface Communications.
Blue Star, nobody cools better.
Summer is coming!
London Dairy Ice Cream has released a film titled #Summer of Indulgence. The film, created by MSL Group, brings to life the various ways in which people can indulge during summer by going for a long drive, fishing, camping, surfing and lots more.
That's all we have in this edition of Grandstand. I hope you enjoyed the show as much as we enjoyed bringing it to you.